This morning, Peter's going to talk about the purpose of life. So, I picked this song to play that I wrote that will go along with that, and also give you a taste of what you might see on Mystic Note this Saturday. I want to walk a path that has never been walked before. I want to build myself a boat and sail around the whole wide world. I want to stand atop a mountain and look out at the earth below. But I can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. I want to live my life until my life is done. Look back from time to time and see how far I've come. I want to know tomorrow in a moment all my own. But I can't do it alone. But day and night and all the time searching for myself. But never thought that I would depend so much on someone else. But as I see the world go round and I try to find my place, well, I know I can't do this without you. And I'm not ashamed to say, though I spent my whole life trying to be strong, saying that I never need nobody's help to get along. Well, now I rest easy, 'cause now I know that I can't do it alone. But day and night and all the time I'm searching for myself. I never thought that I would depend so much on someone else. But as I see the world go round and I try to find my place, but I know I can't do this without you. And I'm not ashamed to say, I want to feel a deep connection on a crowded street. I want to hear a familiar voice calling out to me. I want to know love unending in a world unknown. But I can't do it alone. I can't do it alone.
Taste of what's coming up on Saturday night. Thank you so much, Andrew. All right. Yeah. What is it all about anyway? That's what we're always asking, right? What is it all about? What is the point? What am I doing here? Why is this happening to me? What in the world is going on? Yes. My God, you want to know answers to these questions. All right. So, I want to start out with the reading from today. This is our Joyous Living Journal, our annual theme journal. And this is today's reading, Your Life's Purpose. Your life has a purpose. It does, whether you know it or not. Your life has a purpose. It's not to be a certain thing like an actor or an accountant, nor to do only a certain thing like sing or love. So often, your purpose has been made too small by trying to be fit into a box or a label. Your purpose is to be an inlet and outlet for life, for consciousness, for the divine. Without you, there is a piece of God missing. Fundamentally and primarily, we understand that the purpose of each one of our lives is to express the infinite, to express that life, to allow that life to have its way with us and to shine through us as the very unique expression that we are. So if you think about this idea that we live in an infinite universe, and somehow even beyond that, there's an infinite reality of consciousness, this infinite no thing from which all things come, as the Hindus say. In the Christian tradition, it's the omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent divine God. And that's something so much beyond just this physical created universe. And that in itself we call infinity. Now imagine that infinity, right, it wants to express itself through creation. Every bit of creation, every atom, every quark, every molecule, every quasar, every star, every being, every creature, every person is one of the infinite ways in which this infinite reality is expressing itself. And that means you, as you, seeking to express itself, seeking to experience and explore and discover what it is to be alive. Ultimately, I mean, I know this sounds really silly, but this is what I thought about. You know what the purpose of life is? It's to be alive. Right? To be alive. And not to be alive. Okay. Gotta go to work today. Gotta pay my bills today. Oh. That would not be alive, right? That does not constitute aliveness. To be alive. To be engaged in our lives. To fully experience it, the good, bad, and the ugly, all of it. To be so engaged in our lives that we embrace its fullness. And that we allow it to move us, shape us, grow us, and offer us opportunities to give our gift, our unique and precious gift, which is us. The things that we love, the things that we enjoy, the things that matter to us, the things that we want to be involved in. So in this most simplistic way that we can think about it, our purpose is to express God, to express the divine as us, to be alive. Okay, so how do you do that? That's like a really big thing. So our companion book for this month is Dan Millman's book called The Four Purposes of Life. Dan Millman, as you may remember, he wrote The Way of the Peaceful Warrior and a number of other books. And he has this fabulous book called The Four Purposes of Life. And I love that idea that it's not just, it's such a big question, that your purpose in life isn't necessarily one single thing. I mean, to be alive is like a tall order. That's a huge thing to experience, to be alive. And so I want to share with you, this is the opening of our book for this month. With the pace of life accelerating in a world of change, it's not easy to maintain our balance and sense of direction. Yet we strive to do so. Because a sense of direction toward a meaningful goal may be the best part of happiness. In this pursuit, the journey may indeed matter more than the destination. But without a destination to aim for, there is no journey. We only wander. We humans are goal seekers, from infancy, drawn by the objects of our desire. But somewhere along the way, most often in the dilemma and angst of adolescence, a sense of confusion obscures the simple desires of childhood. What we want is muddled by expectations about what we or others think we should do. We begin to doubt our own desires, mistrust our motives, and wonder where we're going and why. And so this causes us to experience ourselves as being purposeless, having no sense of direction, no meaning. Why? Because we take on other people's ideas about that. And we abandon the things that are important to us. Or we belittle the urge that we have to be and to show up in life. the way that we do. And quite frankly, we don't necessarily live in a culture or in a work environment that is friendly or supportive or conducive to us being all that we were meant to be. I mean, in these last 50 years, our whole way of working and being in the world has been more and more and more reduced into the computer, the cubicle, the sort of cog in the machine. Now, thank God, the leading edge of conscious business and conscious leadership, and the leading edge of even where the corporations are seeking to go is to rediscover that when we come to our workplaces alive, we actually bring our creativity and ourselves to the table. But it can be hard to find, can it? It can be hard. And I don't know about you, but sometimes, I can tell you the other day, I felt like a tsunami had hit me. I had 135 pertinent and necessary emails in a 2-hour period of time. I literally felt like a tsunami had just rolled right over top of me. And I was hyperventilating. Oh my God. Oh my God. And I mean, we've got emails, we've got bills, we've got our children to take care of, we've got our families, we've got our relationships. We want to go out occasionally and watch a movie, have a little fun. We want to have a little self-care, go get our nails done. Okay, maybe the guys, you don't get your nails done, you go play golf. I don't know what you do. But, we have this and it's like, okay, how do you fit it all in? How do you figure it all out and have a meaningful life? As Viktor Frankl wrote in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, this fundamental need for purpose and direction may be as important to our psychological growth as eating is to our biological survival. This fundamental need for purpose and direction. And yet, the duties of our daily lives leave little time to contemplate what it is we're doing, why we're here, and where we're going. And yet that's precisely what we have to do. We have so much depression in our culture today. It's astonishing. It's an epidemic. It's run amok in what is considered the primary place to live in the world in terms of prosperity and affluence and possibility. And life is rampant with depression. Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind, he says, depression is our inability to express the very urge of our life. That's what it is. Now, not to say that there isn't clinical depression and things that happen in the brain that we might want to take medication for some period of time. Situational depression, moments where that happens. But this sort of flatlining of our lives, this flatlining, this sort of base level of depression that so many people feel, it's the product of not feeling like our lives have meaning and purpose and that we're on that treadmill and it grinds us down. And yet we're meant to be alive. We're meant to be as alive as any flower that you've ever looked at and went, oh, it's so beautiful. Or any sunset that you've seen, or any amazing new invention and you've looked at it and thought, somebody thought of that. Isn't that incredible? We are actually meant to be that alive. So Dan in this book, excuse me, he talks about the four purposes of life. And again, I love this because it's not just, oh, I'm here to save the world or I'm here to do this one thing. There's actually these four things he talks about that really help us engage in this notion of being alive, of expressing the divine. We are here to learn life's lessons, find our career and calling, discover our life path, and attend to this very moment. These are the four purposes that we're engaged in. To learn life lessons, find our career and calling, discover our life path, and attend to this very moment. When we are engaged in all four of these things, we are powerfully alive and present to our life. and to what we are being called to do and how our life is unfolding. So this is going to be a fabulous walk through this book this month. And I want to remind you that not this Wednesday, but starting the following Wednesday, Tracy Brown and Diane Consolino will be doing the Wednesday series right here in the sanctuary on Wednesdays at 7 and walking through with us these 4 paths. And so it's an opportunity to go deeper from what you're doing, what we do here on Sundays, to really go deeper. So I really invite you to take advantage of that. Because as we dive into these things, you see, we can begin to actually discover or even make meaning and purpose out of the things that are going on in our lives. Carl Jung says we are meaning-making machines. And that's part of what we do, is we make meaning out of things. And by not discovering the meaning in something, do you see it lacks purpose? By not realizing the things that are going on in our lives, by not, what do I want to say, exploring them for their richness, then there's no directionality in what we're doing. It's just either sort of hit or miss, or quite frankly, we're so caught on the grind that we've stopped even asking the question. So, living our purpose. So we want to talk this morning about the very first one. The very first one, learning life's lessons. And Dan Millman says this in The 4 Purposes of Life. The 4 Purposes of Life. You aren't here on earth merely to strive for success. You're here to learn. And daily life is guaranteed to teach you all you need in order to grow and evolve and awaken to your higher self. This is the notion that we are actually here to learn and grow. This is our first purpose, is to learn life's lessons. Not because we think there's somebody out there who's testing us. There's some being or some idea that, you got to be tested. Not so much that, but the reality of it is stuff happens. Stuff happens in our life. Now, we really do believe that 90% of that is self-created, self-induced. We worry about things, we expect things, we claim them, and good, bad, or indifferent, and we actually are creating the bulk of our reality. There is, however, this other 10% of stuff that is actually the larger universe playing out, other people's experiences playing out. So the tornado in Oklahoma, you will never catch me ever once ever saying that any of those people created that tornado or created their experience of that tornado. No, what they get to do now is co-create with the love of the universe how to grow from the experience. What is there to learn? How can I be something more out of this experience, as opposed to allowing it to shatter me? Right? These are always the opportunities we have. Dan, in the book, he talks about this 10% as involuntary adversity, and we have them. They're the bumps in the road or the boulders in the path, and what we get to create is how we're going to go around, over, under, or through them. The other 90%. Well, he calls that voluntary adversity. Now, actually, you and I, we are constantly, voluntary adversity. Okay, but we are actually constantly creating voluntary adversity in a good way. Every time that you decided to learn a musical instrument, learn a new sport, pick up a sport that you haven't for a while, go have golf lessons with Kathy, whatever it is, right? This is called voluntary adversity. Why? Because you are challenged by it. You're challenged by it. I can't do it. I can't hit the ball. Okay, I've already had my whole spiritual experience with Kathy. I plan to have another one with golfing. Yes, don't swing at the ball. Don't, and all kinds of lessons. There's all kinds of lessons. And whether it's music or art, or whether it's in our jobs, all of a sudden we're required to learn a new program. We have to learn how to look at something differently. We're being asked by our boss or our company to invest in some new way of doing things. And because that's our job, right, we are actually having voluntary adversity. And what does it do? It challenges us, and it grows us. And just like the kid at our very first recital, how do we feel when we master it? Right? It's like, oh my God, look at what I did, whatever it is. And you see, we just like for things to be easy, don't we?
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. And believe you me, I spent a lot of time working on the spiritual notion of ease and grace, right? We can do ease, we can have like our lives be easy, we can have ease and grace, but not to the point where we forget that all of the that everything is an opportunity for us to learn from it. Actually, Dan has a very interesting thing to say about this, which actually made me laugh because I thought about all those ease and grace prayers, ease and grace, ease and grace. And he writes this: we slip into the poor me mode at times. Like the person who once asked me, why does life have to be so difficult? Oh, well, I answered, you want your life to be easy? Well, then don't get married. Don't get married. Don't have children. Don't take on any responsibilities or form any attachments. Don't always do the minimum that you can get away with. Never volunteer and just live small. Your life will then seem easier. But are we humans here on earth to live the easiest possible life? Or are we here to grow stronger and wiser? What I think when we say we want ease and grace is that we don't want to suffer. Right? Suffering comes from resistance. I'm not going to learn the program, so I'm going to suffer through how annoyed I am with my computer. Or we could, with ease and grace, say, I can learn this new program, it's going to be fine, I can learn this new program, I'm smart, I'm as smart as any 4-year-old on the planet, I can learn this. Or we can be in resistance to it. And so, you see, it's when we engage with it that we begin to experience the ease and grace around it, because we're engaging with the possibility that there's something to learn. There's a way for us to grow from it, and that it actually will allow us to express ourselves more, have a larger experience of our own self-expression, and therefore bring more of the divine into the world, incarnate more love, more joy, more creativity, more spontaneity, more of something new than we have before. And so by recognizing that these voluntary adversity and the involuntary adversity at every moment is an invitation. It's an invitation for us to actually become part of the Earth School. Because, you know, you're enrolled in it whether you know it or not. You're actually enrolled in it whether you want to be or not. You were enrolled the day you were born. Earth School. And Earth School is about learning who we are. It's about learning our relationship with the divine. It's about learning how to express this unique set of beingness that each of us is. It's about learning and growing to be more of that. And that's the constant process that we're involved in. So one of our primary purposes is actually to actively engage in the curriculum that we've enrolled in. Dan has suggested there are 12 required courses in this curriculum. It's fabulous. I highly recommend that you grab the book and take a look at it, because the 12 required courses, yeah, you're in them whether you know it or not. So you might as well like read the syllabus, right? Figure out what's going on. But do you see that? Do you see how that transforms the issue? It's no longer suffering through it, but it's now, okay, how do I allow this to grow me? Because that's really the reason for learning. We want to learn how to play the flute. We want to learn how to do a sport better, because we want to grow in it. We want to have that experience of, wow, this is really cool. I've made it over this hump, over this hurdle, and what's next? And so that begins to bring purpose and direction and meaning to our lives. So he goes on to say this really beautiful thing. He says, to be engaged in the powerful religion of ordinary life. The powerful religion of ordinary life. We learn and grow through challenges, and every adversity has hidden gifts, Dan says. And I love this, the powerful religion of ordinary life. That's a whole other way to take up what's going on. That it is actually in the engagement, in the aliveness of our lives, that we embrace this opportunity to learn and grow, to discover things we didn't know before, or to rediscover them in a new way. It was interesting for me a couple of weeks ago, actually in the last 2 weeks, having a number of prayer calls and with a prayer partner, really realizing that these words were coming out of my mouth. And I said, gosh, here it is again. Here it is again. I'm so sad. So sad. And as I was sharing this with my prayer partner, and I realized that since 2006, okay, this is 2013. That's why I talk. 2006. For all of that period of time, since that 2006, the end is when my mom passed away. Yeah, and that was really, really challenging. It was really challenging. My mother and I had been really close for a long time. We were estranged. We reconnected. I mean, I lived in her home, raising my son when he was really little, and just a lot of up and down and turmoil in my relationship. But just an amazing being. And she passed away, and it was very challenging. And she left me having to deal with my stepfather, which is the reason. He was the reason I ran away from home when I was 15. So not only was I grieving terribly, but I was angry. I was really angry. And I had to work every day. I had to work and teach classes and come and speak. And since then, I feel like it's been a whole series of losses in my life. Important people that I love and care about, I've lost. Many of you may know since the beginning of the year, my partner and I, Susan, my beloved, we've been separated since the beginning of the year. One more, and I heard it coming out of my mouth. One more thing to grieve. How many of us have found ourselves in that situation? Whether it's grief and loss, or whether it's one more failure, one more thing that didn't work out, one more time the money isn't there, one more whatever, one more relationship that's out the window, whatever it is. And you see, in that moment, we have the opportunity to be invited into the discovery. What's here for me? What's here for me? Well, for me, the discovery has actually been the last 6 or 7 years. How do we take time for ourselves? How do I take time for myself in the middle of life to be sad, to grieve, to feel the loss, to feel it come and go? And let me just say, my experience in our culture, again, our culture does not really support grieving. It doesn't support the time that it takes, the time that it's necessary for the changes that we experience in our lives, whether it's a change that you've chosen or not. Those changes, those transitions, they talk about the most difficult times in our lives are the 5 great changes that we go through. And our culture does not support taking time to live with that change. Most importantly, to discover what's there for us. And that's every time that we have adversity in our life, every time we find ourselves grieving or in transition or in a struggle or in a moment like that, every time, do you see, we have the opportunity to ask ourselves the question, what's here for me to discover? What's here for me to learn? Now let me just tell you that I've asked that question of people in my office, and what they tell me is, well, I've learned never to trust anybody ever again. That's what I'm learning. I'm learning that, you know what, it's the economy and it's the government, and you can't start a business today. Nobody will support you. Okay, let me tell you that these are not the learnings that bring into our life. Okay? And believe you me, you know, it's easy to go there. It's easy for us to go there. A learning, you see, is about learning and growth. So when we are confronted with these kinds of situations, and particularly if it feels like there's a number of them, and we ask ourselves, what's here for me to discover? Do you see, if it's a learning that's about the truth of who we are, it will always open us. It will never close us. So the learning is about, how do I walk through it? How do I be more of myself? How do I engage with life? How do I express my aliveness around whatever this is? Do you see how different it is than, well, this is what I've learned. I'm never going to X, Y, Z again. That kind of learning shuts us down, which means that when we're shut down, right, there's less of the divine to express. There's less of ourselves to express because we're closing off, we're shutting down. And so the question is, what's here for us to learn and discover? And so as I've been asking myself this question, what's here for me to discover, learn and discover, there's been three things that have come to me. One is I have continually been rediscovering over the last 6 or 7 years how grateful I am that my spiritual practice plugs me into an infinite resource. I don't know how I would have survived the last 5 or 6 or 7 years without that inner resource, and how important it is for us to be plugged into that inner resource and to have that connection to the infinite reality. Because when there's nothing left in the human, right, we have this infinite reality to rely upon, this infinite power and presence, this infinite source. And so that's, for me, has been one of my discoveries. The second discovery is, in the middle of all of this, I've had the absolutely outrageous good fortune to discover how completely supported I am. Now, I have to tell you, when I first got in the ministry 30 years ago, I did not feel supported. Well, I didn't need support because I could just do it. It's okay. It's actually easier if I do it myself because, well, I'm going to do it better. So, no, right? Okay, I know I'm not the only one in the room who thinks this. So, right, major burnout, massive burnout before I discovered, oh, wait, maybe that's not, get a clue. But I really, and I, you know, from familial, family patterns, and I had really, you know, built this idea that I didn't need support, which really was just a way of covering up the fact that I couldn't accept support. I was really good at giving, but not so great at receiving that support. So in the midst of all this grieving over the last 6 or 7 years, do you see, without support, I couldn't have managed. There's no way. I could have continued to work, continued to show up, continued to teach classes, continued to try to give as inspirational talks on a Sunday morning as I possibly can, even if maybe I wasn't in the moment feeling that way. The only way I could do that was to let support in. You see? Now, I don't believe that I had those losses to teach me that. The losses happened. The question is, what am I going to learn from it? So I was required to learn one of the deepest lessons I've learned in the last 10 years, and that is how to let in support and to recognize that the universe, when I say the universe supports me, oh my God, like, that's true. What's your lesson? So here's the question for you. I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes for just a minute. Just for a minute, to get in touch with yourself. What is the adversity that you're walking through? What's the challenge? Now, it doesn't have to be a heart-wrenching bad challenge. It could be a good challenge. Oh, I'm expanding my business. Oh, I'm doing something new I've never done before. What's the adversity, the challenge? that you're walking through in your life right now? All right, and so as you've gotten a sense of that, then here's the question I'm going to ask you. This is the critical question. This brings purpose and meaning to everything. The question is, what is this teaching me to grow into? What is this teaching me to grow into? What can I learn from this that will allow me to grow? All right, as you feel as though maybe that you've begun to answer that question, do you see that this is how we engage in the curriculum? By actively asking the question, what is here for me to learn and discover? How can I grow from this? How can I deepen my spiritual practice, my living in my spiritual truth, standing in the things that I believe that will continue to encourage me to become stronger in those things, as opposed to folding or becoming bitter or brittle or weak. We're constantly engaged in this. And you see, from the ultimate scheme of the universe, these opportunities are the gifts for us to grow, for us to polish off the things that are standing in the way of us being all that we can be. If you are uncertain what that thing is that you're being invited to grow into, the learning, this would be a great thing to take to your prayer partner, take to a practitioner after service, or make an appointment to really explore, what is it that I'm being invited into? What is the invitation to learn and grow? And that's your assignment for this week. Think about how you're being challenged in your life, and to ask yourself, what's the invitation here? I want to close with a beautiful poem. I know you're familiar with it, but we haven't read it in a while, and so I want to share it with you. If you'd like, I just invite you to close your eyes and go within for a moment. Go within with me. This is entitled The Invitation by Orion Mountain Dreamer. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for. And if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, and if you have been opened by life's betrayals, or have been shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it, or fade it, or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own. If you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes, without cautioning us to be careful, be realistic, remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you are telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another and be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. If you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty, even when it's not pretty every day. And if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes! It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you've studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself, and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. And so as we have asked these questions, listen to the invitation to all of life, to being engaged in all of it. We see that we are enlivened and enriched by the expression of that life through us. That we are full and creative and magnificent beings who play on the whole spectrum of reality. That there's nothing to fear, nothing to shrink from, nothing to be afraid of, just the abandonment with which we engage in the fullness of our lives. Knowing that when we do so, Spirit is present. Life shows up. The answers come. There is always a hand that reaches out to us, a heart that opens to us, eyes that see us, truly see us, love that lifts us. This is guaranteed as we allow ourselves to fling open the gates of our life. Because in the expression of the divine, we are lifted by the divine, we live the divine, it lives us, and all we will ever need is present in that moment. So let us accept the invitation to be alive. And with gratitude, we simply let it be.